Gene Roberts. I live in Lathrop, California, and I'm a Baha'i from Lathrop, California. At one time I was in Manteca and a member of the local spiritual assembly. In fact, when the first local spiritual assembly was opened there, I was in that group. And I think it was Mr. Allen, Ken Allen, at the time was the chairman. And about a year later, I became chairman. Shortly after that, I became the librarian, and I moved on to, he had me as far as Peoria. So I've been around in the faith quite a while, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. My life has been turned upside down since then. I've never had such a great a life in all my life since I become a Baha'i. I just regret that I didn't find him sooner, even though I was looking, constantly looking, but on the right trail, wasn't looking on the right trail. A little thing that come to mind is when the young man that called me, I used to have a little shoe shine parlor there in Manteca. And he came over one day and asked me if I would be interested in joining them in a little potluck and a little recital in one of the parks there in Manteca. They were going to celebrate some of the discuss some of the teachings of Baha'u'llah. And at that moment, I had been looking everywhere. I'd give up everything. I'd give everywhere and couldn't find what I was looking for. I knew Christ had returned, but I couldn't find him. I didn't see him, and everybody else was telling me, well, any day now, he'll be here any day. But I knew better. I knew he had already made it, but I couldn't find him. And then I wondered to myself, why is it that he found him and I didn't find him? I'm much older than he is, like that. And then when Mr. Allen, when he invited me to this meeting, I immediately said, no, I can't go. I put up the red flag. I began to make excuses. So he let me off the hook on that one. He said, well, tomorrow night, that was on a Thursday when we had that talk, he said, tomorrow night, which the next day would have been Friday, he said, we're having a fireside at Mr. Allen's home. Would you like to join us there? The red flag goes up again. I go to everything I can to try to say no. He says, and I gave up the word. My excuses were getting out late and all like that. So he said, well, I'll come and help you tomorrow. I'll help you until you get through. Then when you get through, you go home and shower. I'll come and get you, and we'll go to the fireside. Or I'll follow you home. Then when you shower, I'll go home and shower. Because I'll come back Friday and work with you all day until you finish to make sure you won't be too tired and you'll get all your work done.
Well, you didn't have any excuses
did
you?
No excuses.
That was it. Boom.
That's right. So I said, okay, and I was surprised at that point because he was a young man and a white fellow, a young white boy, and white boys are a little scary about getting their hands dirty and black shoe polish and all like that. But he was not. He come right there, sit right beside me, and everything we did, and he did it just like he'd been doing it all his life. And when nighttime come, I said, well, I opened the cash register and began to count the receipts and what we had. Then I began to issue out what we had made. Then I spread it down the middle. I was going to give him half, and I was going to take half. And he wouldn't take any of it. He says, no. He says, I don't want any of it. He says, I come to help you so you would be able to go to the fireside. I began to see then that I had found something that I was looking for. You know what I mean? I began then that something was cooking. So I he got through, then he followed me on home. I got home, showered, about, I guess I was out of the shower about 30 minutes. He come and picked me up. He sits there at Mr. Allen's home, and I was
Is that Manteca?
in Manteca, and that's where the fireside began. And as Mr. Allen began to talk, well, the minute I got to the door, I could tell that something was strange. Something is unusual here. Everybody, all the Baha'is that were there, oh, they met me at the door as if they had known me for years. I'd never had that to happen. I'd been to churches and all that. Nobody would even shake my hand. There's no like that, you know what I mean? When I got there, well, they all greeted me and all like that, and the women sounded. Then the meeting began. As the meeting began, Mr. Allen began to talk about the faith and Baha'u'llah and how he had become, how he was the promised return of spirit of Jesus Christ, the spirit of Jesus Christ, and he said that how knowledge had kept so many of us away from understanding. And then when he spoke the word knowledge, I knew then that was part of mine because of the fact I was looking for Christ. I knew he was coming back. That was my belief. But I'm looking for him to come back in the flesh. And I think many of us were. And I think that's what has stopped a lot of us from realizing the fact.
You mean actually looking like Jesus?
Yeah,
Back in the day?
You're right.
Like, oh, okay.
That's what I was looking for, you know what I mean? But when he spoke the word knowledge, I knew spiritual knowledge. That hit the key for me. So as he began to to teach, speak what he was speaking, all like that, I was just saying to myself, when is he going to quit? I believe him. I know this is what I want. This is what I've been looking for. And it was. I had gone to churches. I visited the Jehovah's Witness. And then I sit at home many times and just listen to the TV, listen to every sermon on the TV, seeing what preacher was going to tell me that Christ had returned. And all of them was telling me any day now. He hadn't returned, but any day now. But I knew better. So
You could feel him in your heart.
from that time on, yes, from that time on, I was just overwhelmed.
Boy.
I knew I had found what I was looking for. The funny thing about it is the next day, after I had declared, I had my little shoe shop on. I usually go to there was a little beer parlor right next door to my shoe shine parlor. And I'd usually go there every day and get me a beer for my lunch. So after I got ready for my lunch the next day, I walked in, I goes to get my beer. I walked in, I said, "Give me a beer, Johnny." Johnny Lasada was the name. I said, "Give me a beer, Johnny." And it dawned on me just like, oh, I can't have that. I'm a Baha'i now. And I told Johnny, I said, "Johnny, I can't take this." I said, "I'm a Baha'i now. I joined the Baha'i Faith last night. I'm a Christian Baha'i." He said, "Oh, good for you." He said, "That's all right. I'll take it back." He says, "I can sell it." I said, give me a Pepsi." And he did that. And and from that time on, I was just overwhelmed. I haven't looked back.
God, witnessing for your faith the day one.
Haven't regretted.
What was it that was in your heart that compelled you, that made you know to be searching? It seems like a lot of people are searching, but they don't know they're searching, or it's not
I was
conscious for
searching
you.
because of the fact in my earlier years, I was a Christian. I was from the I was Methodist, colored Methodist Episcopal. I was a Sunday school teacher and went on to become a Sunday school superintendent. But earlier than that, I was teaching the young kids where they had nothing but the little postcards on the card of Jesus Christ and different people and all that. Well, that's what I was teaching them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But all that time, I was realizing there was something more to Christianity that I was able to pick up and understand. And when I go to church on Sunday, I wasn't getting too much help. The preacher would preach his sermon and all like that. And I remember one time one of the ministers told the congregation, "Don't do as I do as I say do as I say do." And that struck me unusual. I didn't like that, you know what I mean? So I was just all mixed up there for a long, long time, but I kept looking because I knew I had built up in my mind that Christ was going to return. My mother and father told me that, and I believed in that.
So it was basically written on your heart.
Yes.
You already knew. Did you ever have any doubts? Did you feel any doubt after that, or?
Never.
There's a lot of people, you know,
Never.
say they believe and then they get tempted, or
Never felt any doubt.
nothing
None
like
whatsoever.
That. Wow.
I just wish it had happened 100 years ago. Yes, indeed. My mother she's passed on now. She was on the verge of becoming one, though, just before she passed. So I got close to her. She was a Baptist, but I had got her down to the point where she was about ready to declare. But she, like myself, was stricken with arthritis, awful bad, and then she lost her husband, and then after that, she lost her husband, then her son, and then from there, she just wilted away. All the people that I met, every person that I met that declared and said he was a Baha'i, have been just that to me. Not a single one has denied me. They've been right by my side 100% as long as I can remember. And that's more than I can say about anybody, even my own mother and father. Sometimes they walk away. But the Baha'i Faith has been right by my side 100% day one. It's just like, you know, I used to tell my mother and father a lot, they go to church on Sunday and to say amen and all like that, and we don't say that anymore until we get back next Sunday. We don't say that to nobody until we get back to church next Sunday. But the Baha'i Faith is completely different. It's a hello, how are you, and everything we can do to help each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Had the chance of going to the temple in Wilmette, Illinois, and that was exciting, very exciting. It was, the minute you walk in the door, you know, you can just feel the spirit, you know what I mean? Just look out, reaches out and grabs you. Right? Well, I enjoyed all of that. I had spent three or 4 days, at least, maybe 5, 3 or 4 there, and every bit of it was very good, very good. And then later I had the chance to go to Panama, and I was a delegate to Panama when we
dedicated the Mashka Lazkar there?
Right.
Wow.
So I had that experience of being there with that one, and I met with the same thing, just overwhelmed with the Spirit. And I mean, it didn't just come and stay for a few minutes. It was with you. It stayed with you. You know what I mean? It's something you could take with you for days and days and days, and that's the way I felt every time I'd go there. I know I was a little short on cash also, and I've been trying to think of their names. I've misplaced their names and all that befriended me while I was there. I was a little short on cash. The faith paid my ticket and lodging, and I think they gave me some expense money. But when you're going on trips like that, you can spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Unanticipated costs, right?
These two men that I met, I can't remember their name. They were from Los Angeles. They were Baha'i. They took me under their wing. I was going everywhere they went. I was going. I couldn't go because my expense wouldn't my funds wouldn't allow it. So I didn't just be frank and told him. I said, well, I'd like to go. I said, but my expense won't allow it. He says, don't worry. He says, wherever we go, you go. Whatever you eat, we eat. Wherever they went to eat, they ate. And whatever they wanted to eat, if it's a steak, whatever. I mean, and at their expense. And they had never seen me before.
Well, you're their brother, though.
Yeah.
So
very definitely. Now that, and to me, that was a Baha'i. That you had to be a Baha'i to had to be a Baha'i to be like that. Pray for all my brothers and sisters every night. Not a night pass. I pray for them and myself. I'm thankful that the young man caught me in time. Baha'u'llah found me. I didn't find him. He found me. I was looking for him, but that young man did right to me.
But you had an open heart.
Oh, very much so.
You were waiting.
Just waiting.
And it didn't take convincing. That's what's so amazing about your story. Is
Yes, right.
A lot of people, they have to read a lot of books and talk a lot, argue about their conflicts with things. And
that
you just right
never entered my mind. I haven't looked back. Never looked back. And willing to stand on, willing to die right now to these words. Baha'u'llah is the returned spirit of Jesus Christ. I swear by that. The world needs Baha'u'llah because he has brought a plan to mankind. That's the same way we were talking about knowledge. That knowledge that Baha'u'llah brings will teach mankind how to live together in this world, will unite us, become one.
What's the biggest barrier that people have to accepting the Baha'i Faith?
Knowledge. I think many of them that would probably be a Baha'i if they wouldn't have to think, well, Jesus Christ, how come I didn't think of that? They were just like me, waiting for him to return in the spirit. In the flesh. Mm-hmm. Many were. I know I'm not by myself.
Oh, yeah.
I know I'm not by myself. Many were. And today they are afraid or ashamed to admit it. But I'm not ashamed to admit mine. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the spiritual knowledge then. But that night at Ken Allen's house, I picked up the knowledge. I found the knowledge. I held on to it too. Mm-hmm. And looking for more. And I've got plenty right there to prove it. I've been fortunate in that way. Everybody that I've offered literature have accepted. Except, I take that back, except Jehovah's Witness. Oh. They will not accept any. But everybody else have accepted, and some have asked for more. So, so like I was saying a minute ago, I had to go to the hospital a few days ago, and I usually when I go, I take some literature. If I can't find somebody to issue to, I just forget to bring it back. I just leave it there.
Somebody will find it.
Yes, somebody will find it. Yeah.
Did you struggle a lot with living in this country with race and experiencing prejudice?
No, I have not. Race and prejudice, I don't know. I guess I was born in Nacogdoches. I was born in Nacogdoches, Texas. But I left there. My family moved away from there when I was still young. Moved up to a little town. It was Pittsburgh, Texas. But there were racial problems and all like that. But I didn't seem to have any. Didn't seem to be bothered by too many of them. You know what I mean? I know that there were certain things. Well, I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't paying any attention. I know there were places I couldn't go eat where other places could go. I couldn't sit on the same bus or something like that others did. But I didn't bother me as long as I was with somebody I knew. That didn't bother me at all. The world is but one country. Mankind is its citizens.
Why do you think there really are barriers? Like, why do people use race as a barrier?
Ignorance.
Just
ignorance. That's all it is. The lack of knowledge.
What do you think is in the human heart that makes them want to hate and separate and divide their family, one from the other?
That I don't know. I guess they see one person do one thing, he gets tied up in one class of people, and you want to be like that class, but to be like that class, you have to do what they do, say what they do, act like they act, and all like that. And more or less, that's, I think, might be the downfall.
Were there any outstanding Baha'is that you met? You mentioned Ken Allen. You declared his fireside. Have you met any other pretty outstanding
like
people?
my friend
Okay.
Carol
Carol.
here, Jim Matthews, her husband, Yvonne Brown and her husband, Cynthia Burnham and Dale Burnham.
What was your first job? You told me a little bit about your job history. I think people
My
like to hear about that.
first job
Yeah, what was your first job?
cook. I was a cook in just an ordinary restaurant. And then I moved on from there to having my own little business, which I'm not happy about now, looking back at it. I had a little nightclub, sold whiskey and beer and stuff like that. But like I say, I'm not happy about that, but then it's all in the past now.
Did you have music?
Huh?
Did you have music in your
Yes,
little nightclub?
I had entertainment there, live entertainment. I had some of the best as far as that concerned. Salt Lake City. I'm in Salt Lake City at this point, and that was the center for most of the outstanding bands coming through. You know what I mean? And I'd get in touch with them if they was coming through. If they had any time over, I'd book them for my club. You know what I mean? And
Well, who were some of the people that you booked?
oh, I had Dizzy Gillespie, Dinah Washington, Count Basie. Louis Armstrong, and what's his?
The Duke?
No, I didn't get Duke. I had his daughter is also an entertainer, singer. What's her name?
Oh.
Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I had all of
Wow.
them. But then I left that and become a cook for the railroad department, dining car department. I wasn't a cook at the time. To start out, I had to start at the bottom. That's the dishwasher. But I knew I was going to become a cook. They had already promised that, but that was the stuff. But I had to start that.
You had to work your way up.
Yeah. And so for that, in little no time, I became third cook, second cook, chef. Then, as time went along, incidents happened. I got to be a waiter. They were waiters short at one time. They needed waiters. So I'd go out on the car as a waiter. Once I get a date as a waiter, they can't take that away from me. Now I'm a waiter. So I got cook seniority and waiter seniority. They didn't like that, but then the group didn't like that because I could go either way, you know what I mean? And but once I make a run on any train I'm on, then I got a date on that, and I can bid on any such thing if any dates come up that I want to bid on. So that was interesting.
So you had seniority, and
Yes.
you could go all over the country on the
Everywhere,
trains?
right.
Wow. Great job.
My biggest thrill was when I was when I rode the city of St. Louis. That was from St. Louis to Los Angeles. That was a 7-day trip. I was out on the road 7 days and back home 7 days. That's what the trip called for. And I liked that. I enjoyed that.
They met a lot of people.
Met
on
a lot
those
of people,
trains.
good friends and all like that. Was drafted, but the draft didn't get me. I waited and waited and waited for the draft, and they didn't get me. And I don't know whether I got tired of cooking and everything. That's the trouble. I got tired of it. So I moved into Delano, California, a little town called Delano, California. There I got into another little place of beer, had me another little beer parlor and shining shoes and stuff like that. And finally I got I was asked to do, let's see, what was I was doing? No, I was doing. Oh, become part of this, where they, where you know, I forget now how you call it, but you know the game. You issue out a game and all like that. Know like casino games and all like that. Got to be a part of that. That I didn't like because that was in a way gambling and taking
Mm-hmm.
people's money and all
Right.
like that. So I left that, and but I spent 3 years, 6 months, and 9 days in the United States. And when I come out of that, then I come back here. After I was discharged, I came back here
California.
to California. Come back to Delano, California is where I started. No, I got back to Manteca, California, and then started operating as let's see, there was 3 companies I was a caretaker for there. Like they'd have 5 or 6 units.
Okay.
I was a caretaker. I collected rent.
Property management.
Yeah, property
Mm-hmm.
management, something like that. Right. Then I finally left that and went to my shoe shop. No, I left that and went back to cooking. Went back to cooking at the Holiday Inn in Stockton.
Mm.
I cooked there until I got disgusted with the way they treated the chef cook at the time. Left he left the job because he wanted more money, and they wouldn't give him any more money, so they took me on as a chef cook. And but they only wanted to pay me my regular dinner salary, dinner cook salary.
Mm.
So I told him, I said, well, I'll accept the chef cook job. I said, I don't expect the salary that the chef left you wanting. I said, but I do expect to get paid what you was paying him. They didn't want to do that. And when they found out that I was going to leave, they finally made up their mind they would do it. But it was too late then because I'd already made up my mind that I was leaving. So I left then, and that's when I got opened up the little shoe shine parlor there, which belonged to my mother's husband. He had already sold it, but he found out what I told him I had put in my resignation at the parlor, at the kitchen, and I was I'll be looking for a job. And he says, God, if I know that, you could have got it. You could have had the parlor. I said, I just sold it.
Oh,
He says, but the guy haven't paid me. He says, he's supposed to come pay me tomorrow. He says, if he don't come and pay you tomorrow, you got it. You can get it. Well, I was hoping that tomorrow come. He didn't show up. Well, he didn't. He didn't show up, so I grabbed the parlor. And
maybe God was working in your favor,
yes,
knowing he was
looking out
going to
for
come.
me. He didn't show up, so I grabbed the parlor. Now, that's where I was until I come out here. I give up everything and come out here and start to work for this company.
So a lot of different jobs and
yes.
a lot of, you have a restless
Enjoyed
spirit,
every
huh?
one of them.
Yeah.
I enjoyed every one of them.
Well, so here you are.
Mm-hmm.
Good old Lathrop, Homefront Pioneering in Lathrop, California.
Yeah, right.
I think you may be the only Baha'i in Lathrop. I think maybe you are. There's some in Manteca, but I think you're the only one in Lathrop.
Right.
You have a restless spirit and a striving heart. You're a restless spirit, you know, in your travels and you keep going and you never give up.
And I try, and I you know, what happened? Since I've become a Baha'i, it looks like it opened up the door for me to meet a lot of good people and make me more open to many people. You know what I mean? That's true.
If you could tell somebody who is struggling in his or her life what to do and where to go, what kind of advice would you give that person? someone's just struggling, I don't know what to do with my life,
I
feel
would tell
lost.
them
What would you tell them?
to look to God for prayers. He will answer the prayers. Have faith in God, himself, and mankind. Be faithful to himself, mankind. Trust in God.
How do you feel about death and dying? How do you feel
Pardon?
about death and dying? The
Death?
connection between the souls here and the souls there.
Well, I know someday I'm going, and I'm trying to. I don't know whether I'm prepared or not, but I tell myself I am. I feel that I am. I pray hard every day, and I'm not afraid, and I sincerely believe, so help me God, that when I go, if there's a heaven up there, I'll be there.
You know, Abdul Baha said that we should look toward death
Yes.
as if we go, like we're going on a journey.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I think you're pretty well practiced with going on that journey.
Yes,
Following the spiritual
that's
path.
right.
I think you have no problems over there.
Yeah.
Just do what you've been doing and just keep following on.
That's the way I feel. I have no regret.
Well, Gene was a good friend of my husband, Jim.
Yes, he was a wonderful person too. I mean, he was for me, for everything. And I remember one time I think Carol, you was with us too. We all went out on the boat one time. We went fishing, and man, what a thrill! I'm telling you, we had a great time fishing on that boat. I enjoyed it. I hate to see that boat. He'd give up that boat.
I know.
Is that your boat? Jim's boat?
Yeah, we had a boat. So
Yeah,
Gene loves to fish.
yeah. I hate to see him give up that boat.
Well, you and Jim were both military men, or both in the military
but
at one point.
he was overseas. I did all my time in the States. Past, believe it or not, I even tried to get overseas. I volunteered to go overseas. And when just the time I think I'm going, I get to we get me all packed up, and there were about 30 or 40 of us going to packed up and went over to San Francisco to spend the night over there, and then report to Port of Deportation the next morning. We all went down there and reported and took our examination, and about 6 of us got turned back. I was one of the 6. Can you imagine that?
Whoa, why? They
And
just
I
turned you
wanted
back?
to go.
Wow.
Yes, I wanted to go.
Guess it must have not been meant to be.
It must not been for me.
Have you seen any changes, knowing, reading the Baha'i writings and seeing the scope of Baha'u'llah's revelation? Have you seen any changes during your lifetime? You've lived a pretty
Yes, I
long
have
chunk
some.
of
I've
time.
seen
Have you seen some changes
Yeah,
based on?
Yes, I've seen something. I think things are slowly, but I think things are changing. I think.
Do you have an example of maybe
Yeah.
something you've seen that kind of surprised you, or?
Well, there's nothing that I would say is surprising, but then I do see there is not as much prejudice in the world as it once was. I don't think. I don't see any. Well, of course, to me, I don't know. Prejudice, like I never did dawn on me. No, I didn't. If it's there, I didn't pay no attention. I didn't know nothing about it. I don't know. I lived through it. I don't know.
Well, in some ways, you seem like you've always been a Baha'i.
Yeah, that's what I tell
Baha'i
myself.
business.
I've always. I think I told Ken that night when he asked me, when I think Mary says, when I said, he said, if that's the case, I said, I've been a Baha'i all my life, and that's the way I've always felt. I felt just like that all my life. That's my feeling, and have always been my feeling.
He's part of my family.
Yeah, she's always a part of mine. Always was and always will be. Since the very first day I met her. I met Jim on the football field one time in Manteca. That's where I met him. That's when I first met him.
He's probably working the chain gang.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a
He's
high
working the
school
chains.
teacher.
Yeah, he's working the chains. And I was shooting film.
If you wanted to give, like a young man, just 15, some advice as a young Baha'i, what would that be?
Well, the first thing I'll tell him is get to know and love God. Love his mother and father, obey them, trust them, and treat all mankind as one. Also, mention the word how witness to them how great it is to know God and trust and believe in Him. How to get to know Him, and on like that.
To be a man, what does it mean? It's a little different than the old days, when you go marching off to war and killing your brother and,
Well, if speaking of myself, if it was me, I would want to be the man that could treat everybody like he was my brother, live side by side with him, treat him like he was my brother. If he's got a nickel, I've got a nickel. Whatever the situation is, I want to be there with him 100%, bar none, in all respects. No color, no nothing to bother me. It's the person, man meet man, part of God's plan.
I think of you as a warrior for God.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
a new warrior.
Servant of God.